Now, we should not forget, of course, that just as we are curious about the people of the past, the Romans and the Greeks and the Egyptians and beyond, the people of the future will be curious about us. They will want to know us. They will look at our images, and they might look at yours. Well, hey everybody, thank you for checking in once again, and welcome to another one. And today I would like to talk about something astonishing and extraordinary. It's something, however, that's so familiar we might not immediately recognize how astonishing and extraordinary this fact, this set of events is. What I want to talk about is the way in which photography brings light to the past, lights up the past, makes it visible. Now let's think about that for a moment. That is a truly extraordinary thing, but we're so used to it. We're so familiar with photography being able to evoke the past, being able to evoke an image of the past, that we just don't consider it for the astonishing thing that it is. Now, let's look at this in context. We've got a reasonable understanding of the ancient world and the main civilizations of the ancient world. The Romans, we know quite a bit about. The Greek civilization, we know quite a bit about. The same going back, the same with the Egyptians, the Sumerian people. And we've been able to deduce quite a bit of the history from archaeology, from texts, and from all manner of other stuff. Discoveries in Turkey at places like Göbekli Tepe have moved that back, or are beginning to move that back, to about 12,000, maybe 15,000 years at the outside. But the further we go back, the more impenetrable history becomes. If we go back, say, 50,000 years, we can't see very much from that time. Go back 500,000 years, and my gosh, we can hardly see anything at all. All we have left is a few old bones. So history is largely construed from what we can see, from what we can find. None of it can actually be seen as we can with a photograph. We have statuary from the ancient world, from Rome and from Greece especially, even from Egypt actually. We've got some very beautiful statuary from Egypt, although that tends to be more stylized. The Greek and Roman statues do tell you exactly what the person looked like. They are naturalistic, so we know, for example, what Julius Caesar looked like. We even know what Socrates looked like. He was a very odd-looking guy. King Alexander of Macedon, we know what he looked like. So we know we've got the appearance of a good number of various kings and important people from history. But the actual moments of life are not visible. And then around 1880 or so, suddenly, boom, it all lights up, and the whole of history from that point is visible. Now, let's think about this for a moment. This is an extremely important point in human history. And it means that future historians will be able to see every little facet, every little detail of life, not painted, not sculpted, not described in writing, but actually the exact moments from that time will be frozen forever for everybody to see. And that is the miracle that photography has brought to history And it really is worth having a little think about that. As I said, this is a very familiar thing. We've grown up with photography, and so we're very used to it, and it doesn't seem extraordinary. But think of the historians of the future. Think of what will happen in, say, 2,000 years' time. The whole of history will be visible. I've come to some mud. Look at this. This is tricky. That does not look like fun. So let's get across that before we do further talking. Hold on, I'm going to need some ingenuity here. I've come out to the woods and I'm in the forest, and it's been raining and there's lots and lots of mud about. There we are, barrier crossed. It's like Caesar crossing the Rubicon. So let's pretend for a moment that photography was invented 2,000 years ago. Imagine what if you could see ancient Rome and actual moments frozen from, I don't know, the building of the pyramid, perhaps, the Great Pyramid. That would be fantastic to see. Or daily life in Sumeria for ordinary people, for important people. What was life like at that time? What was life like on Captain Jack Rackham's pirate ship? Imagine if you could see images from that. So this is how history will be, and this is what photography has done for history. It's opened it, it's lit it up, it's brought light to it, and it's made history transparent, or at least that's the way history will be in the future from around about 1880. Historians, of course, will still need to interpret. That's a lot of what history is about interpreting the material you've got. So historians will still need to do that, but everything will be much, much clearer, and we'll be able to see every little detail of ordinary life and every other kinds of life as well. Whereas at the moment, pre-1880 or so, we can only construe so much from what we've got, and the sources that we have can only take us so far. So let's think for a moment about the photographic process. Whoops, uneven ground. Let's think about the photographic process. What actually is it? Let's try and contextualize it and see it for what it is. Well, one way we can understand it is as a process that freezes a moment in time. It kind of catches a little bit of time and stores it away. Now let's consider how it does that. Not the details of the chemistry, but the broad outline of the process, so we can get an understanding of what it is that's going on here, and what's actually the meaning of this technology. So how does a photograph catch time? Well, when you press the shutter button, photons from your subject, photons are little particles of light, photons from your subject travel to the film or sensor, the photographic medium. So they come from the subject through the lens to the photographic medium. Electrons in the atoms of that photographic medium move in their orbits and gain energy. They actually kick up an orbit, gaining energy from the photons that fall upon them from your subject. That creates an electrical or a chemical, doesn't really matter too much about the nature, but a change in the medium, and that creates the image. Now, when the image is looked at, when you look at that image, electrons in the image absorb light that's falling on them. The electrons in the image re-emit a photon according to the way they were influenced by the original photons that hit the sensor when the image was recorded. So, in a sense, in a very real sense, the photons that come to your eye from the image when you look at it are the original photons that created the image. Now, relativity, don't worry, I'm not a physicist or a mathematician, so it's not going to get complicated, but this is a fact, as I'm given to understand it. Relativity tells us that photons are outside of time. Light is very, very, very strange stuff. Relativity, if you do the maths, which isn't difficult at this level, if you do the maths, relativity tells us that from the time a photon is emitted, when it starts its journey, to the time it arrives at its destination, because it's going so quickly, literally no time passes. So light is outside of time. It's very, very, very curious stuff. I don't know how that fits into this story, but it's worth mentioning because it's a very, very, very curious thing. When we're playing with light, we are playing with extremely curious stuff. When we know a little more about it, we'll be a lot wiser than we are now. Anyway, so that process literally freezes that moment. It literally catches hold of that light and it retains the light. And as I said, because photons are so curious and outside of time and space in a very real sense, it retains the original photons that created the image. Now, if you actually look at it, this is a truly astonishing achievement. It's like magic, but we're so familiar with it, if we're not careful, we can just completely miss that magic. All right, old images I have or have had, I used to have, I may still have them somewhere, they got lost in the sea of time, I don't know, daguerreotypes of relatives from the late 19th and early 20th centuries, pictures of my grandma's brothers, young men in the 1910s, all there in their army uniform, ready to go off to the war. Some of them didn't come back. One of them came back shell-shocked. What would we call it these days? Some sort of trauma syndrome, but they called it shell-shock in those days. And there they are, these images of these proud young fellas in their uniforms with the black hair parted, sort of Peaky Blinders style, and a dark moustache. And there they all were. I've got images of my parents when they were young from the 40s and the 50s. I've got images of me growing up in the 60s and 70s. History's all there. History it has light in it. Photography has brought light to history. And of course, I'm not going to go into this, but related to photography, movies, film, television, all the moving picture industry, all the moving picture products that have been made and that are now made every day by everybody. Actual moving pictures that walk and talk and speak from the past. And the further we get away from them, the more miraculous those images will become. The past will in the future become visible. From about 1920, certainly from around 1930, images, still and moving images, are everywhere. They're in advertising, they're in ordinary life, they're in news, they're in film, they're in newspapers, they're everywhere. Images are everywhere. By that time 35mm had come in and photography had become relatively simple, nice little miniature cameras to use, giving a really nice image. So the whole thing, really is becoming visible. It's just incredible. Now we should not forget, of course, that just as we are curious about the people of the past, the Romans and the Greeks and the Egyptians and beyond, the people of the future will be curious about us. They will want to know us. And the way they will know us best is through our photography and our video, through our images. What will it look like? They will look at our images and they might look at yours. It's entirely conceivable and entirely possible that an archaeologist, a photo archaeologist of the future, will look at our, yours, my, everybody's everyday images to get an understanding of what ordinary life was like. And ordinary life is recorded every day by people with mobile phones. So it's really, after around 2000 or 2010, really the whole thing explodes and we get millions and millions and millions of images being shot every single day. So people of the future may well look at your images. They will want to know what ordinary life was like, as well as life for politicians and celebrities and fancy people like that. They'll want to know what life was like for ordinary people too, because that's an important part of history. So I can imagine in 1,000 years' time there may well be the post of Professor of Photographic History. I'm sure that will happen, in fact. So that begs the question, will digital images last 1,000 years? Will hard drives or flash drives or cloud drives or anything else kind of drive actually endure for all that time? Well, the answer is, I don't know. Will film images last 1,000 years? Well, I don't know that either. Is the past better as a mystery? Now there's a thought. Is it better to keep the past something of an enigma? Is it better to just find clues about the past rather than have it all laid out before our eyes as it has been since around about 1880? Well, as you may guess, the answer to that is, I don't know that either. I only know 3 things, and I forgot 2 of them. One thing I do know, however, is that we have reached the end of the episode. So if you've got this far, thank you very much for watching this far. Many, many thanks to everybody for watching. Many, many thanks to subscribers for your support. And many, many thanks. Couple of V-twins. Many, many thanks also go to patrons for your support. Many, many thanks for that. Thank you to everybody who has watched the show, who has subscribed, who's given thanks, given super thanks, who's engaged with the channel in any way. If you've enjoyed this episode, you might consider chucking us a sub. That would be appreciated. And if you think this channel's not doing too bad a job of discussing photography and keeping the old lenses and gear alive, you might want to become a patron over at www.patreon.com/Zenography, and you can do that from $1 per month. So many, many thanks for watching, and all that remains is for me to say, if you're not doing anything too awful difficult or downright irksome next week, please do join me, check in and join me for a spot more of the stuff that we call Zenography. Cheerio all.